Coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Coaches. I am your host, as always, guys, Coach Steve, with you today here. We are back talking waiver wires tonight. Week 7 was insane with the bye Mageddon's going on. A lot of craziness happened here, but we're going to be in for another fun episode today, guys, helping you guys pick up some waiver wires for the upcoming week 8 here. Coach John, what's going on, brother? Welcome in.
Nothing much. Beautiful. We got through some great football, some crazy football, some wild games. It's, another Monday. We get to do waivers, doctor up that lineup, get ready for week 9. It's just, we're in the thick of it, man. We're in the thick of it.
We sure are. Great news is that there are no buys in week 8. So everyone's playing in week 8 here. So you shouldn't have to worry about buys, but you might need some new players here and there, of course, and it's something to monitor, and that's what we're here to talk about today, guys. So let's get into the news for today. News-wise, over the weekend, Kerryon Williams, Pat Freiermuth, Greg Dulcich, again, all in on the IR, so they are all out at least 4 games moving forward here. Some injuries to worry about for week 7. Bijan Robinson barely played. He wasn't feeling too good, had some headaches. I don't really freaking know. But definitely was an upsetting situation. DK Metcalf, I didn't know he was going to be out in the afternoon games. Left him in a lot of my lineups with a rib and back injury, if I'm not mistaken, what his injuries are. We'll have to see if he's going to play in week 8. And that was even before the game started. Jerome Ford, ankle injury. He was in a boot after the game. We'll have to see if that is something. We're going to have to monitor that for sure. Keontae Mitchell, first game back after being on IR for 6 weeks. Anderson hamstring, he is week to week. Deshaun Watson had a kind of a nasty blow in his game. He kind of missed basically the whole game outside of throwing a pick, though, to get negative points on the day. Good for him. So we'll have to monitor his situation. Luke Musgrave, ankle injury. He left at the end of the third quarter. Christian Watson, knee injury as well. Not sure how severe that is. It could be potentially a multi-week thing if he is hurt long-term. I did see something where it could potentially be a knee sprain. Well, that's like 2 or 3 weeks right there. So something to monitor. Gerald Everett left in the late third quarter with a quad injury. Justin Fields already considered doubtful for week 8. And just some lower name running backs for maybe more deeper leagues, but something that you might need to keep aware of. Kenny McIntosh and Chase Edmonds are both coming off of the IR this week. So we all know Rachaad White has been unaffected. We know that Zach Charbonnet is dealing with his own injuries. We know McIntosh has been an explosive guy in college. So 2 interesting guys, especially in deeper leagues, that you should take note going on. John, is there anything? Oh, hello, Albert.
Hey, Albert.
How you doing? Anything you want to mention here, John?
No, the Deshaun Watson one, I think, was, we talked about it on Thursday when we were doing our starts and sits and things like that. I was under the assumption Deshaun Watson wasn't going to play. I don't know why they felt the need to put him out there if he clearly wasn't even close to 100% and then just yank him, 5 minutes into the game. I don't know. It just that whole situation felt weird. Like that, it was like, I don't know. It was weird, but it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. So that one was the only one that I think is strange. I don't know what's going on with Deshaun Watson, his shoulder, how they're treating him and whatnot. The other ones, and the Bijan one, obviously super frustrating because nobody knew. Nobody other than Arthur Smith knew. And so that's beyond frustrating. But yeah, this is all, tough. We'll hear news throughout the week as practice reports roll in, but I would assume Jerome Ford's probably going to miss some time. Christian Watson, Luke Musgrave, both going to miss some time. So this is important. This is, got to make some moves here because, I know Jerome Ford was a big waiver wire ad, super helpful for people. So we got to make some moves.
Yes, and Albert did just remind me, I meant to put this in the doc before, but I did not have a chance to. But Dawson Knox is supposedly undergoing wrist surgery. we'll keep him out at least a couple weeks more than likely. What are your thoughts on Dalton Kincaid moving forward as potentially now the actual tight end one in Buffalo?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan. We'll talk about it when we get to our waiver ads. I'm a huge fan. I think that's exactly the sort of runway that a rookie needs. We'll talk about it later, but he just performed really well, had one of his best outings. And now the incumbent veteran in front of him is out of the way. We could see Kincaid really come on strong the second half of this year. And I'm all about it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a very interesting situation. Like we will mention more about Kincaid later, but it definitely props him up. If he's going to see the number one work in the offense, and that's exactly what he was able to do this past week. Quentin Morris, their third string tight end who plays a lot in the run game, missed that game, so Kincaid did get more work. So if Dawson Knox, who's the other pass catching guy on the team, is out, Dalton Kincaid is definitely going to see an uptake in targets here. And again, he's probably going to be a priority when we get to the tight end waivers today. But I do like the potential with potentially not seeing Dawson Knox for a few weeks in the Buffalo's lineup. So, all right. Let's get to last week here. Gardner Minshew, obviously fantastic game from him this past week here. Desmond Ridder showed us that he cannot do anything on the road. Sam Howell, definitely a major disappointment from him this week. Derek Carr did okay. He had like 18 fantasy points. Jordan Mason and Elijah Mitchell, we'll find out tonight, but CMC is playing. So, again, it happens to be what it is. Craig Reynolds was dealing with an injury all week. He didn't see as much work as I thought he might see. Tajay Spears on a bye. But if you held on to him like John told you to, you're sitting hopefully pretty, and now I'm not worry about him. Picking him on waivers. Zach Evans, complete bust. Complete bust. Obviously, we'll talk about who was the shining stars in LA this weekend here.
Yeah.
The Arizona running backs. If you picked up the right one, Amari Dimercado, you made a great play. If you picked up Deontay Ingram, you did not make a great play. Kareem Hunt, great play. 2 touchdowns this weekend. Latavius Murray, not so much, but he played at 50% of the snaps. So did James Cook. Wide receivers, Josh Downs, fantastic week. Wanda Robinson, not so much of a great week there. Disappointment in his game as well. Rishi Rice, 60 yards and a touchdown. Rashad Rashid had a pretty decent game. He had like 8 points. Michael Wilson, I don't think Michael Wilson did all that much, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think he was
in this
single
game.
digits.
Single digits. Yeah, he had 4 points. Yeah, not great. Curtis Samuel, disappointment as well. I think he got hurt at some point in that game. And Quentin Johnston, again, this was prior to him last Monday night when he had a bad game, but he only had 1 catch for 20 yards in week 7. Tight end, Mike Mayer. It must have been the Jimmy G effect because most of his work was with Jimmy G, and this week didn't do as great. Tyson Hill had a fantastic week if you just wristed that on Thursday Night Football. Luke Musgrave did not do as great, but also got hurt in that game too. So not a bad week, but we're going to strive to do better in week 8 here. So yes. All right. So starting at the top here, quarterbacks, guys.
This is easy.
Yes, quarterbacks. Me and John have the same one. So John, I'll let you go first with the top guy on your side.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew. We talked about it last week. He is the starter for the rest of the season. Anthony Richardson out for the year with surgery. And we've said it before. I'll say it again. Gardner Minshew is probably the best backup in the NFL. He is starter quality. He showed it clearly. Played well against the Browns. I don't think he's going to rush in a bunch of touchdowns like he did this weekend, but he can still perform. I think he's got weapons in Josh Downs and Michael Pittman to put up decent numbers and is a viable starter. Absolutely. In Superflex, he's your quarterback 2 going forward. And then in one quarterback formats, he's good streaming option, good bye week filler. I like Gardner Minshew quite a bit.
Yeah, as do I. He actually fumbled 3 times and lost the ball 3 times. Wild that he still managed to have over 30 fantasy points.
That's insane.
But
that's Gardner Minshew for you. That's Gardner.
He's a gunslinger type of player. He's her do the dirty work, her throw the tough plays out there. Like that's just what you're going to get. You're going to get a lot of up and downs, but his value can be great. And he showed it this week against a big defense, which was surprising. That he did as well as he did, but that's what you're going to get with Gardner Minshew. You're going to get the ups, you're going to get the downs, and Again, they play Jacksonville this week here. Oh no, they did play. They play New Orleans, which could be an interesting matchup for them if things turn out right, because the Saints, we kind of seen them the last couple of weeks kind of be okay overall. So it's good play for him. He was also my number one. Both our number twos with Kyler Murray. Again, this is just Adam now, a player who has superstar potential to the team here. It looks like he is getting close to returning. It could be this week. It could be the following week. But add him on your team now, because he's got 2 weeks that are pretty tough in Baltimore and Cleveland. But then after that, he's got some pretty decent matchups that he should be able to be fantasy relevant once again for us. So I do like picking him up now if I can.
Yep, I agree. I think Kyler Murray, and the other part about Kyler Murray too, if you do pick him up, I wouldn't start him. I wouldn't jam him right in your lineup right away. I would just kind of let it simmer. It'll probably take a week or two for him to get back to full speed. You're coming off a knee injury. So I think Kyler Murray is one of those ads where if you're a team and you're, already kind of gearing up towards the playoffs, you're 5-1, 6-2, whatever winning record you have, Kyler Murray will be that guy who could be a total X factor in 4 weeks from now. So don't pick him up. Don't start him and get frustrated and do all that. Just pick him up, hold him, wait for, him to start scampering around and looking like his old self.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely a perfect time to go out there and get a guy like Kyler Murray right now. A couple other options you could consider, because you don't really need a quarterback for the length of this week because there are no buys. Bryce Young is, he was coming off some pretty decent games. Dyson Baggett came off a pretty decent game, and he's got the Chargers this week. Carr is just a reliable 18-point kind of guy. Desmond Ridder, he's on the road again, but again, he has potential. It only really works at home, but you could try to roll that swing again. Again, quarterbacks this week is really not a big deal. So, but the next position will be, and that's the running back position here. John, running backs, you can start at the top with your number one. Give it to us.
Amari DiMercato. He is my number one ad right now. It was interesting how Arizona handled it last week. There was a lot of talk of Amari DiMercato, rookie, young, fast, sort of electric kind of running back. Something that I think Arizona needs in that backfield. Not that James Conner or Keontae Ingram are slow, but they're not exactly lightning. So there was talks of getting him involved last week, and then they didn't at all. So, then the faith kind of washed away. No one in fantasy really wanted to start him this week. But if you listen to it, the Arizona Cardinals basically came out and said that was wrong of them to not get Amari more work. So the writing was kind of on the wall. If you trusted it, great. I didn't trust it. I have him on my benches, but it looks like going forward, at least until James Conner comes back, he is going to be in the mix and he is going to be in the plans. And so, I think a lot of things over the next week or two could really change for Arizona. You could get Kyler Murray back. Amari could be, sort of getting 50%, 60% of the snap share, and things could look great. So I'm okay with him. He's not going to be, just because he's, with the Arizona Cardinals, he might not be this super high volume play every week, but he's clearly good enough to get you, close to 10 points this week on 12 to 15 touches. So I think that's probably, where I'm ranking him. I think similar to how we felt about Jaleel McLaughlin a couple weeks ago. Now, all of a sudden, he's worked his way into a starting role constantly. He's just, in the offensive plans. Amari DiMercato could similarly do a very, type thing where he's all of a sudden 2-3 weeks from now, he's just kind of in the plans for the offense. You're on mute, Steve. I think you're on mute, Steve.
Yeah, I am on mute. Thank you about that. But, I have Matt in my number 4 slot right now. I think he's a pretty solid running back overall. I mean, he saw majority of the work in the offense here. I mean, Damian Williams was the backup runnings down back. Keontae Ingram didn't even play on the offense. He was special teams. So he has a role, but he's got the Ravens, the Browns, the Falcons. They're 3 tough run defenses right there. So I don't really know how much work you're going to get out of him. That's going to be great. But if you're desperate for running back, it makes a lot of sense. My number one pickup this week are the Rams running backs, and it starts with Darrell Henderson. And had I known that Darrell Henderson was going to sign with them when we did the podcast on Monday, I would have said pick up Darrell Henderson. And I did pick him up in a lot of places after the fact because, well, he has the history there. He's a veteran running back. He's not a bad running back. He just wasn't a great running back. And we saw in the first game back, it was Zach Evans who didn't even play on the field. It was Darrell Henderson taking over majority of the downs work, splitting that basically with Royce Freeman and him taking a lot of the passing downs work while Royce Freeman kind of was just a backup kind of play, even though he had more carries and finished with more yards. Henderson was the top guy on that offense there, and he should be picked up everywhere right now. Williams just went on IR. You have 3 weeks of Henderson as your RB1. I don't think this is going to be like where Zach Evans, next week it's Zach Evans. No, I don't think it's going to be like that because had that been the case, Zach Evans would have started this week. I mean, sure. Why bring in these older veterans? Why not try out the young rookie? There is a reason behind it. Evans was never really a guy that really splashed enough where he was always the main guy. He always seemed to lose his job to somebody in college, and he lost his opportunity here within a week span somehow. I don't know what he even did, but Henderson should be the top pickup for running backs right now. If you're looking for a running back the next few weeks here now, the Rams, they do have some. They have Pittsburgh is decent. The Cowboys are kind of tough. Oh, they just play Pittsburgh. Dallas is tough this week. Then they have Green Bay, which is decent. Then they come into Seattle. So decent matchups overall. Not the best, but better than what the Cardinals are giving you these next couple of weeks. So,
Yep. I do like it. I think that it is, to your point, Freeman was getting work. Royce Freeman was kind of the only guy who was on the roster before this mad dash of signing everybody. So, the fact that Henderson got as much work as he did that fresh into the sort of organization is a good sign. And so I think it felt 50-50 this week. It could swing even more in Henderson's favor next week. So I like that call.
Yeah. So since we're in the top 2 still, I'm going to go with my number 2 because that was John's number 2. My number 2 is Tyjae Spears. He still falls under the 40% mark there. John had him as a pickup last week, and he should still be picked up. Coming off a bye week, rookie players seem to find ways to find more work in offenses. And I know King Henry's there, but Tyjae Spears has worked his way into this team here, and we don't know if maybe King Henry gets traded in the next week and a half here. So Tyjae Spears should be off any waivers at this point. Now we should not be able to talk about him right now. 40% range. We shouldn't be here to this point to be able to talk about him. But
get him up over 40%.
So get him out of there. Again, he should be a pretty high pickup as well. John, your number 3 guy. Talk about your number 3 guy.
Pierre Strong. I think this is purely just a Jerome Ford insurance play. I think Jerome Ford, being in a walking boot's never a good sign. I think he is going to at least miss this week coming up, if not more time. And Pierre Strong is, again, similar to Amari DiMercato, fast, electric, speedy. I have a type when it comes to running back. Clearly, I have a type. I like guys who are don't need a lot of work and can make something happen. And then, God forbid, they do get a lot of work. It's great. So Pierre Strong is one of those guys. I think that Kareem Hunt's good, but is who he is at this point. I don't think he's ever gonna be 85% of a backfield anymore. So you could get Pierre Strong for 1 week, getting 10, 12 touches, fine. And then if something comes with Jerome Ford, if news breaks this week and Jerome Ford's on IR or has to go under the knife, now all of a sudden you got a decent flex play for 4 or 5 weeks. So I like the idea, the prospect of Pierre Strong, adding him now, because he could be one of those big waiver ads come Thursday, right? And it's like, I just like to get in front of it now, add this guy, and then let everybody worry about that stuff later on. And to be honest, he's probably really low on people's radar. So if you are in a fab system, you could get him for relatively cheap.
Yeah, I like that a lot there. Pierre Strong was taking over the Jerome Ford role when he went out in the end of the third quarter. So there's potential for him to see a big chunk of work. I don't think Kareem Hunt just becomes his workhorse back. I think they do continue to split the work between Strong and Hunt if Ford is to miss week 8 action. So my number 3 is John's number 4 is Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray, again, he didn't have the greatest week, so you might be able to wait until after waivers to kind of go pick him up. But he played like 50, he played half the amount of snaps of the offense, and so did James Cook. So they basically split the offense basically down the middle there. James Cook took the early downs, and Latavius Murray had the passing downs, the 2-minute offense, the third down roll, and
the red zone work.
Red zone work, yes, that is big here. So, it makes a lot of sense that you should have him on your roster because it could be coming down to the season where they want to use a little bit bigger guy, and Latavius Murray's a little bit bigger than James Cook in terms of that sense there, and they might want to pound the rock a little bit more with Murray, or if they fall in situations where I don't think they're going to be behind in a lot of games, Latavius Murray may be able to run out the clock or late in game here and not wear down James Cook because obviously they want to keep him fresh, or I don't know what they want to do with him, to be honest here. Very confused what Buffalo wants to do with James Cook, but Latavius Murray has seen a lot more action in game so far. We do have a question in chat from AS. Do you trade Amari Cooper for George Pickens or Calvin Ridley right now?
Trade Amari for Pickens or Ridley? I probably wouldn't trade. I definitely wouldn't trade him for Ridley. Pickens, to me, Amari and Pickens are pretty similar, kind of wide receiver 2s with some upside. So, if you're getting sick of the, Amari Cooper and Deshaun Watson experience, I could get it, but that feels kind of lateral to do Amari for Pickens. But that's the one I wouldn't want Ridley at this point.
Yeah, I think I would make the move for Pickens. I'm believing in that his role isn't going to just completely fade away. He's going to see probably, if not the same amount of targets as Deontay Johnson moving forward here, and he is their big play on their team guy. And again, whatever's going on with this Cleveland passing attack, and Deshaun Watson is not healthy. He's just not healthy, and it's very hard to trust that Amari Cooper is going to be able to continue to stay at elite production at his age at this point. I would rather take the shot on George Pickens. He's off his bye. You have him the rest of the season now. He's got some decent matchups, especially in the playoffs. I would want him
off bye too.
Yeah,
I agree. I actually, now that I'm thinking about it more, I probably would. I would move for Pickens as well.
Yeah. All right.
More upside than Amari just doesn't, to me, have that like tantalizing upside that he used to have or that we thought he was gonna have. I just think the Browns offense just looks off right now, and it's just weird.
Not great. All right. Let's see where we at. John, let's go to your number 5 player. Who do you got there?
Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams coming back off IR, got a little bit of work. He looks to be now back in his number 2 role with Alvin Kamara. I don't know what's going on with my boy Kendre Miller, but he didn't see any of the field the other night. So I think it is probably just kind of a rookie season for him. And so it'll be Jamal Williams and Alvin Kamara. And so Jamal Williams is definitely a break glass in case of emergency. You don't want to put him in your lineup if you don't have to. But again, if God forbid anything happened to Alvin Kamara, you got a guy who's 15 touches a game. So that's, again, this is the point of the season where you're either reacting to an injury or you're protecting for a future injury. That's who these running backs are at this point. And I think Jamal Williams is that decent, low end RB4. But if anything happened to Kamara, you got to start him.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, he's definitely a good pickup to make. Obviously, we knew that Kendre Miller was going to go away if he didn't perform to stand to a high level off the bat, giving an early on season opportunity. So Jamal Williams back as the main guy also makes sense. AS has another question. He says, so would I try for Metcalf or Deontay?
I would rather, honestly, out of all the options you gave me, I would probably Metcalf is not a bad one, but it's either Deontay or Pickens. I would rather Pickens. So it's really Pickens or Metcalf, and that's a preference. I mean, I prefer Metcalf. I don't love Kenny Pickett. It's confusing. He's Pickens, Pickett. I don't love Kenny Pickett, but I also haven't seen a ton from Geno Smith this year either. But I would probably still lean on Metcalf over over Pickens. But yeah, either one. Cooper for Metcalf or Cooper for Pickens is both a solid trade.
To be honest, I like Deontay Johnson still. I know he's coming off an injury. I still like Deontay Johnson a lot in this offense here. I think he will see his role back up. He only played like 69% of the snaps. He's usually like a guy who's like in the 90s.
Yeah.
So, he saw 6 targets on 60% of snaps. Like, imagine he gets back up to 90. He's probably going to see close to double-digit targets most weeks, I'd say. Like, I like Pickens. I really do. But Deontay Johnson is still like a 1A, 1B scenario of wide receiver 1 on this team. So I do expect him to see a good workload. So I'm good with either Pittsburgh Steelers guy. I think I would lean Deontay as a safer play, but if you want a big play, I would lean Pickens personally.
Yeah, that's kind of the difference, I guess. You hit the nail on the head right at the end there. The bigger swing, the bigger play would be a Pickens, whereas the safer play is your Deontay, right? Like, Deontay is probably going to go 8 for 85 almost every week, right. Whereas there's a chance that Pickens could go 10 for 120 and 2. I just don't know if that's really in the cards for Deontay Johnson. You hope it's close to the line of scrimmage and he gets a score, but that's the difference there. But they're both good options.
Right. All right, and my number 5 was Devin Singletary. And people probably forget from obviously him having a bye this past week that he actually was the one in week 6 that really kind of stepped up against the Saints and performed the best. I mean, Dameon Pierce continued to have a terrible average on the offense here. His yards per carry was a 2.6. Devin Singletary had 12 carries for 58 yards, and he had 2 catches. And then Dameon Pierce wasn't even targeted in the passing game. Like, we could be seeing the end of Dameon Pierce's role here on the offense. Maybe the bye helped him out, maybe. But Devin Singletary should hopefully get a bigger role moving forward, and he should. And they have a great matchup against the Panthers this coming week here. He's someone that I would maybe just wait until waivers hit and then go and pick him up. And he could be a guy that ends up being a pretty solid flex play this week in fantasy. So, he's my number 5 guy.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Some other options: Tank Bigsby, Zach Charbonnet, Rico Dowlings, Keontae Mitchell, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, Chase Edmonds, Craig Reynolds, all guys you could pick up. Again, none of them guys really scream excitement. Chase Edmonds I could be interested in, as I mentioned before, but again, those are just other option kind of players. Over to wide receiver here now, and our top 2 are the same here, John. So talk about number 1. I'll let you have number 1 here. Oh, do you want the Patriots?
I'll take the Patriots, guys. I'll let you have Josh Downs. Josh Downs is more fun.
Yeah, all right. So Josh Downs this week, guys. Obviously, we said he was a big pickup last week, and if you had listened to us, well, he paid off very well for us in fantasy this week. 5 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown. He had a 50 yards, some touchdown early in the game. And again, he is starting to get more involved in this offense with Gardner Minshew. It is the perfect recipe for him because Minshew loves to throw the ball. And Josh Downs is becoming more and more involved in this offense here. He's playing over 70% of the snaps at this point here. And he is working as almost the number 2 in the offense in terms of targets right now. And with matchups like the Saints, the Panthers, New England over the next few weeks here, they're gonna have to continue to throw the ball consistently because their defense, the Colts, not very good. And I do expect that Josh Downs continues. Every time Josh Downs has been on the field with Minshew, he's been productive for us in fantasy. He's been so productive for us in fantasy, and he definitely needs to be on benches at least. And I think in this matchup with the Saints this week, you can actually flex him and be pretty happy with your output at the end of the week here. So Josh Downs is definitely someone that can make a difference on your fantasy teams right now moving forward. So he's the number 1 pickup on both our lists. So
Yep. I love Josh Downs. It was I went back and looked at kind of. Because sometimes with these rookies, it's good to go back to like your pre-draft grades and scouting and whatever you saw on film and take it for what it is. But you go back and you watch Josh Downs and you're like, he is just one of those guys where when the ball's in his hands, he can make things happen. And he's shown it now at the professional level. You question that in college. You say, okay, he's at UNC. He's hyper productive. Like, is this going to translate? And he gets to the NFL and it's starting to translate. And so you have to pay attention to that. And so that to me is just confirming some priors that he's a gamer. He's good, man. He knows how to find lapses in coverage, and he's a good ball player.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have a question in chat from Johnny. Currently I'm 1-6. Can't seem to buy a win. Sorry to hear that, Johnny. All my players are inconsistent. Adams, Lamb, Waddle, Watson, last place. Last season won it all. This year, last place. Shit luck. Damn, man. Sorry to hear that.
Johnny, listen, Johnny, I get this comment. You're in safe hands. You're frustrated. I'm with you. I had Justin Jefferson, Saquon Barkley. I had who else did I lost? What's his name? Montgomery. I lost. It's just on paper, my team should have been done. I had Chris Godwin in my flex. I'm like, dude, on paper, I had Kyle Pitts. I'm like, on paper, I should be awesome. I am also 1-6. It just sucks. It happens.
He said he won it last year with a stack with Hurts and Brown. This year, no stack. Is it wise to always do a QB wide receiver stack?
So
it depends.
It totally depends. I got to try and dust it off. I wrote an article probably 3 years ago about basically the odds of your ceiling percentage wise of how high your ceiling goes when you have a quarterback wide receiver stack versus not. So in the article, to sum it up quickly, it's more advantageous. The problem is you get much more variance. You can have very bad games, but when it hits, your hit is, your high score on the week, and that's kind of, when you have that Tua Tyreek Hill stack, there could be days where they both lay duds. And if one has a dud, odds are the other one's going to have a dud. But when they both hit, it's astronomical. You're through the roof. So there is definitely some gamesmanship and advantageousness of having a stack. But I also will warn you, don't just throw a stack out there just because it's a stack. Like, it needs to be an elite combo for it to really work. AJ Brown Hurts is that elite combo, so you did a good job last year.
Cameron said that Ritter London stack.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the stack you want.
Yeah, no. Exactly. It depends. There's levels to this. You could throw, you could throw a Mac Jones, Kendrick Bourne stack, and it's not exactly the same.
Yes, no, absolutely. But John, talk about the wide receivers of the Patriots, Douglas and Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, Demario Douglas and Kendrick Bourne. Demario Douglas is a rookie. Kendrick Bourne is now a grizzled veteran with the Patriots. But these are two guys who I think the Patriots are really just trying to figure out their identity on offense. They don't know kind of who the playmakers are yet. I don't think they really have a ton. I don't know if the corpse of Juju Smith-Schuster really is, any good, and whoever else they feel like trotting out there, but they've started to settle in on Demario Douglas and Kendrick Bourne as being their kind of primary guys. I don't think either one is hyper explosive. I don't think either one is really a dominant force, but they're two starting wide receivers getting over 70% of snaps in an offense. And so they're gonna, perfect example. Kendrick Bourne had 6 receptions for 75 yards and a score. That's good. Like, that's, it's not going to be these explosive, massive performances, but with injuries and, bye weeks coming up. I know next week we have another huge bye apocalypse going on. So guys like this that I always say are sort of the potatoes of your fantasy team can help. They can be useful where you're like, hey, I just need 8 points. If they get a score, I get into the double digits, I'm happy. I think Demario Douglas and Kendrick Bourne are both those guys where they're just, they're going to see 5, 6, 7 targets just about every week. They're both good catch percentage. They're both going to have 5, 6, 7 receptions. odds are it'll be under 100 yards, and you hope they get a score. So I like them both as solid plays, but not exactly, solid wide receiver threes. And sometimes you just, you need that in a fantasy team. You can't keep kind of beating your head against the wall with, I'm going to bring them up in a second, but Jalen Hyatt, these guys who there's tantalizing upside, but you're not getting any targets, any receptions, nothing's happening. So it's hard to keep rolling those guys out there. Whereas Demario Douglas, you might not get the biggest game, but you're at least not going to get a goose. I think you're on mute again.
Kendrick Bourne has been showing consistency in the offense in the last 3 or 4 weeks here now. Maybe when Juju comes back, that could disrupt that slightly. But he's still been a consistent player the last few weeks. Demario Douglas has definitely been a rising player that deserves more opportunity in the offense. Mm-hmm. We have a question in the chat from Cameron. Hey, coaches, 14-man league. My running backs are Bijan, Brian Robinson, Javonte, Jalen Warren, and Zach Charbonnet. Someone just dropped Dameon Pierce. What do I drop one of my RBs for him?
I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. Maybe Jalen Warren. Maybe if you want to risk it. I mean, I don't know. So I'm assuming this is redraft. If it's redraft, then maybe you could drop Charbonnet. But I mean, I guess redraft you probably drop Charbonnet. But I don't know. I mean, because I don't know. Like you talked about, what does Dameon Pierce's role look like rest of season? Does he just kind of fade into the background of this already pedestrian running back room? It's like, I don't know. It could just be, I don't love the prospect and the idea of like Dameon Pierce is going to figure it out. Like, I just don't, I never believed that. I didn't believe it last year. I'm sticking with my guns that he's probably just a solid NFL average running back. And those guys, Chase Edmonds of the world, they're good, but they're not fantasy superstars. They're just not. So I think that's kind of, it's just the situation that Dameon Pierce is. The reality of Dameon Pierce is he's probably closer to Darrell Henderson than he is anything else, and so you're already on a team that loves to throw the ball. The organization, the coaching staff brought in Singletary. They're not tied to Dameon Pierce. They're looking towards the future. I don't think Dameon Pierce has done anything to really prove that he is a integral piece to an offense. So yeah, he easily could get faded away in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And then you dropped Charbonnet or Jalen Warren, guys who I think do have upside if A, anything was to happen to the starter, or B, just in general, then you could look silly, could look stupid. So I would let someone else kind of pick that landmine up and that roster clogger up. And, it'd be like, ask yourself if Kenneth Gainwell was out on the waiver wire, would you go, through the roof to go get Kenneth Gainwell? It's like, no, probably not.
Well, but the point is that Pierce is, to a lot of people, Pierce can be considered a brand name. Kenneth Gainwell is not a brand name. I think that's part of Cameron's thing is like, hey, a player like Dameon Pierce, a name value player, and that's what I think what Dameon Pierce is, a name value player, is out there on waivers. Like, should that be a thing or should not be a thing? And I think if you wanted to pick him up and if you like him, I've never been a fan of Dameon Pierce. His yards per carry average is terrible this year. Like John said, I don't think he figures it out at just off a 1 week bye. The matchups get a little easier, sure. And he would be a good sell high if you could after week 8 if he does well. But again, I would rather let someone else take that train wreck personally. But if you wanted to pick him up and you have maybe faith in him, probably Zach Charbonnet, just because Ken Walker is just dominating this backfield, and I don't think Charbonnet is taking advantage of that at all this year. And I think it's going to be more of a red shirt for him and maybe next year. But if you did want to pick him up, that would be the one player. But again, you're hoping that Dameon Pierce has an upside still, which I don't see.
Yeah.
In a 14-man league, you want that.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Yeah. All right. So over to my number 3 here, waiver wire wide receiver pickup. I had Jalen Reed. We know I just mentioned before, Christian Watson has an injury that he's considering dealing with. I don't know if it's serious yet. We'll find out in the next day or two if it's something that's going to cost him his time. But when that happened last time, we saw Jaden Reed have a bigger target share in the offense here, become much more involved. The last few weeks been kind of minimal, obviously, because of Watson being back in the lineup here now. And especially even Luke Musgrave, if he's going to miss any time too, that could be interesting. Jaden Reed could just jump back up into potential flex play each and every single week. And he's got the speed and he's electric. And he probably should be picked up now before he does have a considered big game again, or if we find out that Watson is going to miss significant time. So he is my number 3 guy. John, you have a number 3 guy here who's also very electric. Who is that?
Jalen Hyatt. So I just dogged Jalen Hyatt for being the opposite of Kendrick Bourne, but he did see, he saw 5 targets this week. He went 2 for 75. So that is who Jalen Hyatt, that's the upside that we know and we assume can come. And so if you're going to keep targeting him, I don't think he's ever going to be a 10 target kind of guy, but if he could get 5-6 targets a week, he can do a lot clearly with that. It's the weeks when he's not getting on the field that kill you. But I think that they're going to start to get him involved. They need sparks to this offense. They need some speed. They need something to get going here. And Jalen Hyatt, they drafted him. They drafted him high to be this exact player where, we can take stabs every once in a while. Tyrod Taylor is not afraid to throw a ball. He's not afraid to extend a play with his legs and look for someone deep. I think that actually helps Jalen Hyatt. So I'm willing to pick him up. I'm not quite willing to put him in my lineups yet, but there was a point in time a couple weeks ago where I didn't even want to pick him up. And at least now I can see that the Giants' ineptitude is starting to wash away, and they're realizing like, oh, we have to get this kid involved because he is clearly, an electric player, considering, last week was a down game at 2 for 75. So.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely an interesting pickup kind of play right now to see if his role, he's playing over 70% of the snaps now. So his role is growing. Just needs a quarterback. That's all it really is. So, John, I'll let you go through Jonathan Mingo if you want as well. So,
yep. So Jonathan Mingo is another one. We talk about rookies and the bye week bump. Jonathan Mingo was I think the 5th or 6th wide receiver off the board in this past draft class, beginning of the 2nd round. So still a pretty highly drafted guy. We thought for the longest time that there was plenty of room for him to grow and work in this offense. And then all of a sudden, Adam Thielen decided to act like he was 27 again. So I think that, with the combination of coming off by sort of other players, DJ Chark and some of these other ancillary pieces, not ever really getting their legs under them and figuring it out. And also not having to rely 100% on Adam Thielen. They need Jonathan Mingo to sort of figure it out here. And I think they are going to start to target him and get him involved and try and develop this player and at least see what they got. Because they need to make a decision next year on their wide receiver core. And if they don't even know what Jonathan Mingo is, it's hard to make that decision. And I think they're going to start to use these next few weeks to figure out who is Jonathan Mingo, where do we go going forward with this player. I believe that he's a good guy, a good player. I believe he's a good wide receiver. So, you start giving him the, Demario Douglas 6-7 targets a week situation. I think he can be very solid with that.
Yeah, no, I like Mingo too. He's my number 4 as well on waiver wire pickups this week. Like I said, rookies coming off a bye, I'm interested in picking up because I want to see what happens. JSN off a bye had a better game.
Mm-hmm.
Quentin Johnson off a bye, not so much. But that's what kind of happens. Some of these rookies can take the next level, and Mingo is a guy who has prime opportunity to take another step in his development here. And coming off a bye with another rookie and Bryce Young is quarterback, it's interesting to see if these two take another level and produce and get more involvement with Mingo in the offense here. So, yeah, I like him a lot too. John, you have Michael Gallup as your last guy if you want to go through that real quick.
Yep. Michael Gallup, to me, is just a relatively pass-happy Dallas team. He's the number 2. There was fears and questions of sort of his health, his status, all this, but he's come on pretty strong. I don't know if Jake Ferguson, the tight end there, will ever, develop into a meaningful number 2 in an offense. So it is still up in the air behind CeeDee Lamb. And I think Michael Gallup probably fills that role. And similar to what Tutu Atwell was early in the season, he'll be good for a big play, maybe a big touchdown. Michael Gallup is that exact style player. And, once Dak coming out of a bye figures some things out, maybe the offense looks a little bit better. I'm willing to at least take a chance at Michael Gallup. And again, in any sort of fab settings, he's not going to cost you much. He's not going to cost you anything. And in a week, this coming week, you'll kind of know what you got. If he's back to just 3 targets, then forget it. You move on. But if he's 6, 7 targets, you're like, okay, I might have a legitimate piece here.
Yeah, no, Michael Gallup's definitely an interesting name that you can pick up right now. Again, coming off the bye, you hope that this offense in a general sense kind of got things going, got things together, figured out what they're struggling in and try to be better, because this offense was not looking good heading into their bye that much. And Gallup had some decent games, so hopefully maybe he can kind of continue with that stretch. My number 5 wide receiver, Treylon Burks. I realize he's under the 40% mark again, and I understand why. He's been hurt the last 3 weeks now. Hopefully coming out of this bye week that Treylon Burks got healthy enough that he can get back into action here. They desperately need players in this offense here. We're not sure who the starting quarterback's going to be for week 8 for this Titans team. I don't know if Tannehill's going to be ready or not. It might be Malik Willis, but they definitely need some kind of playmakers in this offense here because they're struggling right now, this Titans offense. And if Treylon Burks can come back and be the replacement of A.J. Brown that they wish that he was, it could be worth petting on your bench and seeing what happens moving forward for sure. So,
my only fear with Treylon Burks is just, are we going to get who we get in that quarterback? That's my only fear with Treylon.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Some higher percentage guys, mostly just Tank Dell coming off that concussion. Mm-hmm. He missed the week there, unfortunately, but after the bye, hopefully he's ready to go and kind of resume that role he was playing at before he got hurt. A couple others, Jameson Williams, Josh Reynolds, two Detroit Lions receivers that, they both have their own talents in certain ways. So Julio Jones, if you're excited to see if maybe he gets more involved, he had, 1 catch in last night's game. So maybe he sees more involvement moving forward. Wan'Dale Robinson, Juwan Jennings. I didn't mention that obviously Deebo Samuel's missed this last game here, and it could be he's supposed to be out until after the week 10 bye. So Juwan Jennings might be a pickup that you can make actually right now and see if maybe he plays off pretty well tonight. And Rashad Rashid, of course, is still a pretty decent pickup for wide receiver options this week. All right. For tight ends now. Mm-hmm. John, go ahead and name off the top tight end on the board.
Dalton Kincaid. And this to me was even before I knew this Dawson Knox news. Dalton Kincaid, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Anyone who takes fantasy football serious and you're listening to this podcast and this show, you take it serious. We know that rookie tight ends tend to take a while to develop. Usually it's not for the first year or two. It's later on in their career. But Sam Laporta coming on super strong. Luke Musgrave showed some flashes. Michael Mayer had a game, but again, athletic type of guy. Dalton Kincaid just kind of hasn't. And it was a lot of Dawson Knox getting in his way. It was a lot of the offense not really needing him because Gabe Davis was playing really well. You had Diggs playing really well. But as this offense and some of these players come back down to earth and shift to a more realistic offense, I think Dalton Kincaid is going to get a ton of work. He's going to get a ton of looks here. And I watched the game this past week very intently because I am a Patriots fan. Dalton Kincaid got targeted on multiple very important third and, distance type situations where if he starts to become that sort of reliable, steady target for Josh Allen, that's great. And now you're getting Dawson Knox out of the way, which they were using Dawson Knox in the red zone, similar to how they use Lat Murray. I think they enjoy his blocking. I think they also know he's a pretty nuanced sort of route runner in the red zone. But Dalton Kincaid's hyper athletic. He can be that and more. And so seeing 8 targets this week is great. I think that's probably going to be the new normal with Dawson Knox out of the way, 6, 7, 8 targets with the hope of some more. And then now you're increasing the opportunity of a touchdown because come red zone, they're not going to trot Dawson Knox out there. They're going to keep Dalton Kincaid in the game. So I like him a lot. I think this is a big time to pick him up. I know, dynasty might be tough, but if you can start to make moves for him, if you're struggling at tight end, because he could come on strong second half of this year. You're on mute again. You're on mute again, Steve.
I've been on mute all day today. I am the worst.
It's a tough day.
Okay. It's a tough day. It is a tough day. But Dalton Kincaid is my top waiver wire pickup this week as well. We're waiting to see him kind of take that next step, and he did it with Dawson Knox on the field. And now that Knox is going to be out for a certain period of time, it might be a week, might be 2 weeks, could be 3 weeks potentially. Kincaid is definitely going to take opportunity to see more work in the offense here. Now, it's not going to be what he's not. Just please take a note that it's not going to be what he did every single week this past week moving forward. The Bills had to throw the ball a little bit more than they usually do, playing from behind. They're not always in that situation consistently, but he might be actually become a reliable option compared to what he was, which was basically nothing for the offense right now and for our fantasy lineups. So he should definitely be picked up, definitely be on roster at this point. I think he should be over that 40% mark right now.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, John, you got your second tight end option. Go for it.
Taysom Hill, easy. This is, again, a Swiss Army knife. He throws the ball. He runs the ball. He catches the ball. He's been getting targeted more and more over the past 3 weeks. They're actually using him in not just gimmicky packages, but actual tight end packages. And there is, other than maybe Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, there is no one who could have a bigger game than Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill, because of what he does. I mean, because he could throw a ball, catch a ball, and rush one. I mean, he could score in a myriad of ways. So Taysom Hill to me is a must pick up tight end at this point. I think that they're another one that are struggling for reliable playmakers and things like that in the Saints. And Taysom Hill, as much as we want to dog him for being this, irregular football player, he is a damn good football player, and he gets production. Whether you ask him to throw it, whether you ask him to run it, or whether you ask him to catch it, he can do whatever you need him to do. So take advantage of that. And look, if Derek Carr really is sort of banged up and injured, and maybe you see some Taysom Hill quarterback packages, and that just explodes your output as a tight end. So I like Taysom. I like Taysom a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's being a little bit more consistent, which is nice. Again, he's a fine pickup. I don't like picking up Taysom Hill because I always start him and then he ends up not doing well. But it comes with the risk of starting Taysom Hill at your tight end position.
Yeah.
I'm going back to Michael Mayer. I know this past week was not the week everyone expected, as they might have picked him up off waivers, but a lot of his production did come with Jimmy G. And unfortunately, Jimmy G did not play this past week here, but he should be back in week 8. They said that he will be back in week 8. I would like to see, and Mayer's playing the high percentage now. He's playing 70% of the snaps every week here. He's doing this. So he is the main tight end moving forward. So his games will come. He will have better matchups and more opportunity to do well in this offense here. They play the Lions this week. The Lions are terrible against tight ends. So Mayer should be in for a pretty fun and exciting game. So he's another great pickup this week. Some other options, Trey McBride, Luke Musgrave, some higher options like Jake Ferguson, Logan Thomas, Jono Smith, that you could all potentially pick up for tight ends this week. So The tight end market's not too bad right now for us. So
Yeah, no, I think it's for first time in a long time, I feel like there is a decent amount of depth at tight end in fantasy football.
exactly.
They're not all, they're not all Travis Kelce, but there's at least some depth. There's at least some depth.
Yes, we have another question in the chat here. Hey guys, happy Monday. Happy Monday. What's the value you guys see for Brock Purdy? I'm thinking about trading him for another quarterback. Who would you want to target for Brock Purdy?
I mean, I think you would need to try and target either. What would be an interesting, maybe talk to the Justin Fields manager. If Justin Fields misses another week, I mean, that might be a stretch, but you could possibly do that. I think maybe, Kirk Cousins without Justin Jefferson is not great, but when Kirk Cousins has Justin Jefferson, he is great. So he could be one that, maybe you throw Purdy out there and you wait, but I'm just wary of when Justin Jefferson's coming back. There's not an exact timeline. So those, you need guys who are either underperforming right now, who have upside, or there's no point in trading Brock, because I think Brock is about as solid as a quarterback, high end quarterback 2, low end quarterback 1 as you can get. It's just so solid. So to trade that away, you would need to be gaining a decent amount of upside. And to me, it would be a guy like a Justin Fields, who had, didn't perform great to start, had at least 1.5 kind of big weeks, 2 big weeks, and then got injured. And now the managers, because that manager who has Justin Fields probably isn't winning a lot, and they're scrambling at quarterback. And if they think, I can get Brock Purdy, plug up that hole, they might do it. And so that's kind of how I would approach it. Sometimes trades, you need to look at the team you're trading to as well. Like if the team you're trading to is 6-1 and they have Justin Fields, it's like, well, I'm not going to trade, because Justin Fields is going to come back at some point and my team's going to be awesome. But if they're 1-6 and they have Justin Fields, knock on the door. They might answer. So that's kind of how I would approach it.
Yeah, trading straight up for quarterback is not always the easiest job to do. John's right. You need to look at the situation and the circumstances of what your league is doing, what the teams are doing here. 2 players I wouldn't mind going after if Brock Purdy has a good. I think he needs to have a good night tonight to make that trade, because if he has another slump, I don't know if anyone's really going to want him that badly. But like guys like Jared Goff, CJ Stroud. You might be able to get one of those guys. They do have good playoff matchups, but so does Brock Purdy too. So somewhere in that range. I mean, unless you're looking to give up more and go for one of the big guys, but you'd really, again, you need to give up a lot to probably get one of those, whether it's redraft or dynasty right now.
How would you feel about Brock Purdy and Trevor Lawrence? Just curious. I'm just trying to find another. 6, same.
I'm not really trusting what this Jags pass offense is doing. He does have a really difficult playoff schedule. Okay. I don't know. It's just like you could. I mean, if it's dynasty, yeah, I would definitely do that. But like redraft this year, I'm just not on the Trevor Lawrence page right now, unfortunately. True. It's a good question, man. Thank you. All right. John, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here tonight?
No, nothing. I have nothing I need to add. Hit the subscribe button. It's I get it. This is back to our previous comment with Johnny. I get it. The season is unfair. It is a relenting whirlwind of BS that you get hit with all the time. But have fun with it. Keep your head up. Keep plugging away. Tune in on Mondays. Get your waivers priority set. Tune in Thursday. Get your lineup set, and have fun and just battle back week in, week out. And if you can't, then at least enjoy some football. So that's it.
Agreed. Yes.
That's the best advice I can give you.
Absolutely. Enjoy more dynasty leagues. And if you need help, come find me. I love doing
join dynasty leagues, because then you can just sell out, and then losing is a good thing, because then it's good to lose, because then you're like, I'm getting the number 1 pick.
Exactly. So, like I said, John said everything pretty much already, which is great here. Jerome Ford has a low-grade high ankle sprain, so he's probably going to miss at least
3
1
weeks,
2, 3 weeks. So
I think at least 3.
They said 1 to 2 weeks, but yeah,
Wow.
it could be potentially up to 3 weeks. But yeah, guys, again, thanks for listening. Whether you're listening to us live here on our YouTube channel, appreciate all the comments. Keep coming up, keep getting them coming through. You know, we love the comment on your guys' comments. And again, if you're tuning in afterwards, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast, we do appreciate that as well. And again, there's not much to say, guys. Hopefully week 7 was good to you, and hopefully these waiver wires can help you move towards week 8, and we'll be back on Thursday to talk starts and sits. So thank you guys for listening. Tune in until next time, and have a good one.
Back to back is not far-fetched. We got a couple of Clark hands.